The system is hopeless. You cannot reform our existing system. It's beyond redemption. I actually believe that any true lover of Nigeria should be sat somewhere as a collective making plans for the day after. This system is already dead. We are just trapped in a death spiral. I don't know how long it's going to take. The sick thing about our situation is that people are sat in Washington, D.C., and God knows how many think tanks around the world, and they are gaming our situation, and they've made conclusions that our country will collapse by 2030. And stuff that they had predicted are already happening, and we are seeing them happening, and we are sat like victims on the Titanic.
Hello everyone, welcome back, and thank you so much for stopping by. I truly appreciate you all, especially for your support in this my channel. Thank you so much for always sharing my video. So my people, I bring to you another new update concerning what Mr. Dele Farotimi said about the state of nation. There is one report that I read from David Hundeyi. This report is years ago that Nigeria is going to collapse by 2030, my people. Everything they predicted is exactly what is happening in Nigeria. Like, we are sleeping in this country. We don't even know that Nigeria is going to collapse in 2030, my people. Hey, this is really, really interesting. My people, Dele Farotimi really said a lot in this new interview, which I would love you guys to relax and listen, because this is a man that we love to listen, because at the end of the day, you are going to get one or two things from what he said in this particular video. Let me allow you guys so that you can listen and hear everything that he said here. But before then, please don't forget to subscribe, share this video, give me a thumbs up so that YouTube will recommend this video to other people to watch. Thanks so much for doing so.
Today, we know what has happened under President Jonathan. We know what has happened under President Buhari. We're now in the era of President Tinubu.
The last horseman of the apocalypse. That is what it is.
Okay, so that's the way you would want to describe it. Some members of the Labour Party and some people who have described themselves as obedient have said President Tinubu is not their president.
Well, I am first and first a creature of law. I am by training also a lawyer. Whether I like it or not, Bola, or let me rephrase that, the man known as Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I forgot to add Adekunle, is the president of Nigeria. I may like that, I may not like it. Whether the legal order was subverted to bring about that fait accompli, whether I believe that they've effectively destroyed Nigeria to bring it about, it does not matter.
So you're a Nigerian?
I'm a Nigerian.
And he is the president
of Nigeria. He is the president of Nigeria.
He is your president?
Unfortunately so.
Okay, so that's cleared. So now your president then...
Unfortunately.
Yeah, your president has created a situation where, unlike any other president in the history of Nigeria, people are crying, we're starving, we're hungry.
Good.
What would you be saying to him if he was listening now?
Why would I be saying anything to him? I shouldn't. Look, you know, there is this error that we make as a collective. We almost constantly, always excuse our situation. We excuse the failings, quote and unquote, of our rulers on incapacity, on mistakes, we find multiple excuses. What we never seem to understand is that they are doing exactly what they set out to do. So how do I tell a man who knew beforehand the exact repercussion of the actions and inactions that he had decided consciously to do? In my own opinion, fraudulently so, and he then proceeded on the very first day of his stay in office to say subsidy is gone. That singular pronouncement destroyed the savings and well-being of at least about 98% of Nigerians.
But this was the promise of all the other
But
candidates.
they did say that each person also set aside what program they would put in place either before or after doing so. Since that was done in May, what has happened? What has happened to the national minimum wage bill that was signed? Which states? How many states are implementing it? What has happened to the price of petroleum products? What has happened to the price of electricity? What has happened with security? Let me explain something to you, Ebon. In northern Nigeria, poverty has always been part and parcel of the social fabric. But food poverty was never a thing, because no matter how poor the people were, they could grow their food. They could stay in their villages. They were safe. So even though they might not have a kobo to their names, they had food on their table. They could eat. They could live with a roof over their heads. What has happened? On Buhari's watch, superintended again by the one who has now succeeded him, northern Nigeria has become essentially a theater of war because of illegal mining. And the illegal miners work under the licenses of different warlords whom you and I will call bandits. Bandits are carrying sophisticated arms. All manner of mineral resources are being mined in northern Nigeria, and there are more than sufficient evidences of this in the public space.
So how do you feel when you realize that the governor that superintended over Zamfara State, where there are so many bandits and where there are so many illegal miners, is now the Minister of Defense?
Put it this way. To look at any part of Nigeria or look to any one of the many functionaries of the Nigerian state and then be outraged, as I am when I look at someone like Matawale or whatever that one calls his name, being the one, even bandit says that he's one of them. That's the one that is busy, they're calling the Minister of Defense. When you look at it, it's always very easy to be outraged by the insanities that we have normalized in our country. But I have found that it would only be a sense of selective outrage that will lead me to look at Matawale and be angry. Who am I supposed to look at, from the president to the Senate president? To who am I supposed to look at within the Nigerian governing establishment and find some inspiration for hope? Who?
What do you have against the Senate president, by the way?
How many charges was it that he had with the EFCC before he became canonized by the Buhari government? Isn't that the same man that was being chased into the government house in his former state? Look, he is no better or worse than any one of the other ones. Take any one of the senators. I don't believe they are any better or worse than he is. He's just primus inter pares. They are all the same. Bar one or two, maybe, because I don't really know how you expect anything good to emerge from this sick system that we have. It's very easy to point fingers at Tinubu, Akpabio. Those are the primary examples of the society that we have managed to evolve. But are you going to look at the clergy and find anything better, really? Are you going to look, whether it's the Muslim cleric, the Christian clerics, where are you going to look at?
So when you look at the entire system and you say that the entire system is fraudulent, is decadent, is almost near what somebody I know, but I won't mention his name, who's a politician, he said many years ago that the case of Nigeria is hopeless. Are you at that point where you think?
No, I don't believe Nigeria's case is hopeless. No. The system is hopeless. You cannot reform our existing system. It's beyond redemption. I actually believe that any true lover of Nigeria should be sat somewhere as a collective making plans for the day after. This system is already dead. We are just trapped in a death spiral. I don't know how long it's going to take. Even the Americans, all of them are busy gaming the end of our country. The sick thing about our situation is that people are sat in Washington, D.C., and God knows how many think tanks around the world, and they are gaming our situation, and they've made conclusions that our country will collapse by 2030. And stuff that they had predicted are already happening, and we are seeing them happening. And we are sat like victims on the Titanic. We are rearranging deck chairs.
So Nigeria is not in a hopeless state.
If we, as a collective, find the grace to confront the truth of the hopelessness of our existing governance systems and structures, if we find the grace to tell ourselves that each and every one of us looking in our mirrors in the morning are just as guilty as the ones we have set over ourselves, because what we tolerate is what becomes the culture. We have tolerated these, we've become part and parcel of it. We are also guilty. I'm not exempting myself. I have my own blame in this. There are no saints and sinners here. Our situation has gone beyond the place of saints and sinners. We are all, to varying degrees, guilty. We've made all form of horrible compromises, all of us. But if we believe for 1 second that we can continue on our current trajectories without urgent turnaround, the reality is that even those ruining Nigeria whilst pretending to rule it have already concluded, even as the American and British sponsors have concluded, that Nigeria will die the way it's going. And they are making plans for the day after. We are the ones who have failed to make plans for the day after. There is no single person, and I say this without equivocation, who you may deem a member of the Nigerian elite who does not carry a second passport or have some form of residency in a foreign country. They've popularized buying up citizenship of one tiny island somewhere or the other. They have one for the level of capital flight out of Nigeria will tell you, with the way this current government is superintending the economy of Nigeria, that we've entered the end game. They have gamed that Nigeria is dead. We are the ones, the victims, who have failed to understand that when Nigeria collapses without us having planned for the day after, we are the ones who will be the victims.
So which of the islands have you got their passport?
I have never carried a second passport in my life. I do not have the residency of any other country aside from Nigeria. As I speak with you, the only reason I cannot claim that I do not have a foreign account is because I had to open one in 2010 when I was trying to buy a car in America, and I have less than $100 in it. I have no foreign property anywhere. With Nigeria, I'm all lean.
Okay.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. So it means you're a stakeholder that will not go anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere.
So does that include protest and fight and
revolution? Let me put it this way.
Or whatever?
I don't do protests.
Okay.
I don't do protests because when you are protesting, there is an assumption that the person to whom you are protesting has the capacity to hear you, and because he has heard you, he would then make amends on account of your protest. Protests happened from the 1st of August. I believe it ended on the 10th.
Yes.
This government increased the fuel price instead of decreasing it. Does that seem like people who listen? This government is deaf and dumb, deliberately so, because it does not accord with the plan of this government to listen to the victims who believe themselves to be citizens.
So you're one of those that believe that this government does not care about the people.
As it, look, who steals power to care for those from whom it has stolen their inalienable right of sovereignty? Who does that?
So let's move on very quickly to the issue of the Constitution of Nigeria. A number of people have said there's a need for a constitution review, and others said don't review this constitution because it does not represent the thought, the mind, and the hearts of we the people. What is your own submission on this?
Remember that when you asked if there was hope or if our situation was hopeless, I made clear that the one thing that is required is the courage to confront the truth, that too many lies undergird the Nigerian state. And the Constitution is one of them. The 1999 Constitution, otherwise known as Decree 24 of 1999, is a fraud. Ab initio, it is a fraud. When the military took power in 1966, there was a constitution. That was the last constitution that the Nigerian people gave to themselves. After that constitution, what you have found are succession of frauds. The 1979 constitution, to a lesser extent, because at least Obasanjo pretended to listen to the Constituent Assembly until he then imposed the will of the Supreme Military Council on the recommendations of the Constituent Assembly. So what the Constituent Assembly recommended was way different from what the 1979 Constitution became. And to make matters worse, the 1999 fraud built on the original fraud of 1979. So what you had were a bunch of men and picked essentially by the military who did the best they could within the terms of reference they were given to write a constitution, and then they labeled it "We the People." Where they found the people that they were on whose behalf they were speaking, and now what they did is any different from what the British did when they were busy signing all kinds of fraudulent treaties, I don't know. So what has happened is that Nigerians have exchanged one form of slavery for another. Because if you say "we the people," it would mean that the people have sat down and agreed that the original agreement that was broken in 1966, which had 4 regions, have now become 36 states, which has now become 37 by the grace of the Supreme Court and Samania and Co. at the PEP-T. So now you have 37 states of Nigeria, thanks to the fraudulence of everybody involved in their creation. So how do you reform a fraud? We all need to admit to ourselves that we are far away from the beginnings of the country that our fathers pretended to found. This is not where we were. Let me show you how sick our situation has become. In 1962, when the idea for the creation of the Midwestern region was mooted, a motion was passed by a 2/3 majority in the Western Regional Assembly. A plebiscite was held in the part of the Western region that became the Midwest. A motion was taken before the Federal House of Representatives in Lagos, and it passed by a 2/3 majority. That was the basis for creating a 4th region. A country that had such rigorous process for the creation of additional region now became the possession of successive military bandits, thieves, whom we all know are thieves. None of them can be pointed. Who are the people who created states in Nigeria? Yakubu Gowon. The joke in Britain till tomorrow is that when he came with half of Nigeria's treasury.
Bank treasury.
Whether that's true or not, for an anecdote, there must be elements of truth. And it's not, that generation is not particularly known for accountability. That was their joke. That's one of those who created states. And then you had Abacha, Obasanjo, Abacha creating states, Babangida. Those are the people, those are the founding fathers of Nigeria. Yorubas have this funny proverb. They say if you see the children of the household behaving like hooligans, look to the elders. They must be unworthy. The country that they have built is an indictment on the life they have all lived, because this country has become a mess and is collapsing in their lifetime, and they sustain the evil. So when they say "we the people," is a fraud.
So what do we do about our constitution?
We have to tell ourselves that we can't be afraid of sitting down together to tell ourselves the truth. Over the years, there have been some measure of consensus that have been reached across the divide. There is this basic understanding in Nigeria today that we have 6 zones. Treat those zones as regions, broadly. I don't have a monopoly of knowledge. There are other people who have suggested 8. Bring these different ideas to the table. Some people are saying that take the existing states and allow them to be able to regionalize. Whatever you need to do, do it.
Well, you have a situation where people are saying there's this allegation. Those who are in the
government has lost control of its territory. That's why a Turuji or whatever his name is making video. You go to TikTok, you find different bandits sharing money. Bandit is doing giveaway, but it is Yele Sowore you are arresting because he says revolution. So
how do you stop this trajectory of
The
this
only-
moving downward spiral into what you say will lead to chaos? How do you stop it?
let me start by saying this. For 9 years, I've been in the public space, and everything I have warned every one of us would happen have happened. I challenge anyone to point at a single thing I've told us as a collective would happen to us that hasn't happened to us. So I'm done with telling us what will happen, unless when I'm asked, as you've asked me. What I'm more interested in is what we can do. And what we can do, as unpalatable as it might be for our people, they must understand this. The French word, revolver, it means to turn around. It means turn around. That is the root word for revolution. If we say we don't like our trajectories, trajectory meaning a movement of direction, that we're heading either towards a cliff or a wall, then we have to turn around. That is a revolution. Whether that revolution is by means of the peaceful one that the like of me has preached consistently, or the violent ones that are already taking place all over our country, because I have no doubt about it. What you call Islamic militants sometimes are in actual fact forms of revolution. Revolutions happen in concentric circles. If they didn't have legitimacy amongst the indigenous communities, they would not have grown. They are not spirits.
So
The militants in the Niger Delta is a form of revolution as well. So
if we're in a situation where it's obvious that we're doing a downward spiral, how far down the abyss would we go before we realize that
see,
we can't go any further?
what has kept Nigeria together have been three, in my own view, 3 broad lies. One, religion. Religion came to Nigeria to find its true meaning. If you look for the root of the word itself, religion, it comes from Latin, religio, or Old French, religare. It means to bind. That's to tie something together. Religion ties the imagination of men, and it tells them how to think and where to think. There is nothing intrinsically or inherently wrong with religion. But when it is aligned with poverty and then aligned with ignorance, what you find is that it becomes almost impossible to reach the person who has been so afflicted. That is what has happened to the Nigerian. So we've gotten to the point now where we, as a people, whoever calls himself leader in any way or form in Nigeria, whether you are in the news sector, whether you are in any form of profession, if you haven't gamed Nigeria has been dead, you now have to sit down and start thinking, what do we do with tomorrow? Because if you're saying how far down are we're actually really, really deep down. It's gotten so bad that the illusion that had kept peace in Nigeria, which had kept northern Nigeria supine since 1986-87, I think I mentioned this at my intervention at your event in Abuja the other day. The northern part of Nigeria had never been part of a conversation for change in Nigeria. Never. Since 1986, 87, since after the SAP riot. Now, all of a sudden, thanks to the work of the likes of Bello Galadanchi, thanks to the works of the likes of Yele Sowore, thanks to the last electoral cycle, a lot of people have better information, and hunger has become the chief recruitment officer. The last protest was essentially about hunger. Hunger is a universal language, so the people are ready. It is the leadership that needs to align its thoughts and methodologies before if we crash.
Yeah, so before we wrap up this segment of the conversation, I want to take you back.
Okay.
What do we do to get the nation to revolve to the point where we say a new constitution will happen? We can't force the hand of Mr. President.
We can't.
We cannot force the hand of the National Assembly. We can't force the hand of the State Assembly.
We can.
We can't force the state government.
We can.
How do we force their hand if you say we can't?
We can to each and every one of those.
How do we force their hands?
The we forms 99.9% of Nigeria. Let that we find the grace to speak together as one. Those who call themselves leaders,
Speak how? Through
find common purpose, whether that be through professional bodies, whether that be through traditional institutions as compromised as those have become, whether that be through religious organizations, whether that be through professional organizations. But let me explain something, sir. The first rule of survival, self-preservation, right? But self-preservation is found on enlightened selfish interest before you begin to advance. When selfish interest remains as unenlightened as the one that has happened in Nigeria, where you find the poverty of private wealth. People are so rich, they are driving Rolls Royce, they are driving all kinds of exotic cars on bumpy roads. They can't go anywhere without carrying 10,000 mopos. Poverty of private wealth. Poverty of private wealth. That is all it is. The healthcare infrastructure, everything has collapsed. So if we're...
I still want to hear, how do we? You said we
have to get...
What do you do?
That is why I said,
because
those who call themselves...
They don't want protests. The people that are mentioned, the presidency, the National Assembly...
is not dependent on them.
Okay, so what will the people do?
See,
to get their hands... If
the people are more aroused by ethnic hatred, if they are more focused on religious bigotry, if they are fine with being distracted by the occasional handout of spaghetti at election time,
or rice,
case may be, I can scream and screech from now till kingdom come. And that is why I have come to the point in my life. I lost a dear friend recently. May God rest his soul. It has taught me a lesson. All of us are transient beings. We're here today, and we may be gone tomorrow. So I'm not going to waste whatever is left of my life trying to tell somebody who is awake to wake up. Yorùbá will say, ẹni tó sùn là ń jí, ẹnìkan ò kì í bá wọn jí apirọrọ. It is the man who is sleeping that you arouse. You don't awaken the man pretending to be asleep. Am I the one who has to tell these religious traders that the country is collapsing around their ears and they should tell their congregation? They could march on the street and be praying nonsensical prayers, but they cannot speak in support of the right of citizens to protest. How many pastors? Am I the one who will tell them that? Am I the one who will tell the imams who went to Aso Rock and the lesser imams were given, the lesser clerics were given $10,000 and the bigger ones were given 20? Am I the one who will tell them to stop lying to the victims of their excesses? If I'm working to awaken the people to find common purposes, and those who are called in the name of God are busy profiting from the misery of the people and being paid off to be silent, to the point where clerics have become distribution point for palliatives. So I cannot waste my life In actual fact, Egbon, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, I wrote a piece, I do not write for you. What was I saying? I'm not speaking or writing for this generation anymore. It's a waste of time. But I am playing my own role. What I have discerned as my purpose for living, I am doing it. History would absolve me. And coming generations will either read of my work or find things that I have said, and they will remember there was a sane one amongst them, even though he was the one they deemed insane. But my conscience is clear. I go into my bed, I'm asleep within 2 minutes, Egbon. Within 2 minutes, I'm sleeping. Regardless of what the storms might be, my conscience is clear.
Okay. So on that note, we're going to have to take a break. But before I go, let me ask you this very quick question.
All right, sir.
Because we're going to go into the details of it. Some people said that President Tinubu is definitely the wrong person to have as the president of Nigeria at this point.
Most definitely.
And some people said definitely the candidate that you supported in the last election, Mr. Peter Obi, is not a messiah.
It's definitely not.
So why did you support him?
Why do we need a messiah?
So why did you support him?
He was the best candidate in the race. He was the candidate, he was the very best candidate by a country mile. There was no other candidate in the race that could have united Nigeria and set it on the trajectory to what would have been considered a peaceful revolution. He would have turned this country around without look.
So if Peter Obi was 2027, 2031, and
no. I am a creature of reason. In 2022, leading into 2023, Peter Obi was the best candidate in the race. If the election would hold tomorrow, I'll still vote for Peter Gregory Obi on the basis of the objective realities. That is still the person for whom I'd vote.
Okay.
Truth is indeed bitter, and is only truth that will set you free. Thank you, Mr. Dele Farotimi, for always speaking truth to the power, for always saying it as it is, without fear or favor. My people, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys had everything Mr. Dele Farotimi said in this particular video, which I would love you guys to leave your thought in the comment section about what he said here. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Share the video, please, and also give me a thumbs up so that YouTube will recommend this video to watch. Thank you everyone for watching. I will see you guys in my next one. Goodbye for now.
Welcome to Shammer Senior Steve.